evening and welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. The process to appoint the Election Commission of India has come under the scrutiny of a constitution bench of the Supreme Court, which is hearing a bunch of petitions on the issue. Over the last couple of days, the bench has made several scathing observations and asked the government tough questions. Today, the court asked to see the files related to the recent appointment of Arun Goel as Election Commissioner, saying it wants to know if there was any hanky-panky as he was given voluntary retirement from service only recently. Mr. Goel was made member of the three-member Election Commission just after this larger issue came up for hearing in the court last week. And the court today said it would have been more appropriate if the appointment was not made while the hearing was going on. Questioning the current system of appointing the election commissioners, the court said that every government appoints a yes man and that there is a dire need for change. A TN session only happens once in a while, the bench said. To this, the centre responded that there are several informal procedures in matters of governance and that the existing system is fine. The court doesn't have to intervene. At the moment, the election commissioners are appointed on the advice of the government, and the pleas in the Supreme Court are demanding that a collegium appoint them instead, which includes the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. All of this, of course, comes at a time when the Election Commission's independence and even its neutrality has been called into question. Joining us first on the program tonight, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, a senior lawyer himself, and of course, a member of Parliament and spokesperson of the Congress Party. Abhishek Singhvi, thanks for joining us. What do you make of these rather scathing observations by the court in the course of this hearing? It appears to be as if the judiciary and the government are really on a collision course, one on this matter, but also on the appointment of judges on the other.
Nidhi, I think we need to step back slightly and understand this in a larger context. You know, free and fair elections have been held to be part of a basic structure decades ago, in 75, 77. What does that mean? It means that even by a constitutional amendment, you cannot do anything which dilutes free and fair elections. Now, the custodian, the referee, the umpire for free and fair elections is the Election Commission. So the court is rightfully concerned that, look at the irony, Nidhi. On the one hand, statutory bodies like CBI and CBC have leader of the opposition and have other broader-based selection constituents. This is a constitutional body, in that sense higher than a statutory body like CBI and CBC, where you can appoint election commissioners as by a mere executive letter. So you are a secretary in one department, I am a secretary in another. I can simply appoint you tomorrow. No broad-based. That is the issue the court is considering. Now, I want to make no bones in saying that normally this matter could have other perspectives, but there has been a tendency in the last several years, and you know the Lavasa case, you know the Lavasa example, where this independence and autonomy has been threatened, has been impinged, has been, I would say, clearly undermined. There was, in fact, I must share with you, in 2019, before the Lok Sabha elections, personally, I have prosecuted about 40 or 35 complaints arising from the Lok Sabha elections. In all of them, there was, because you know, in the Lok Sabha election, the model code of conduct, you have to redress within 2 days or 3 days. Otherwise, the whole purpose is gone. In most of them, there was redressal and action by the EC. But there were 2 sets of complaint, numbering about 10, which involved the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, on which by a mere efflux of time, nothing was done by the Election Commission. On the file, it is believed that there was a dissent by Mr. Lavasa. Now, these are things which do not bode well for a custodian, a referee, a runner of our electoral system.
But if you look at the Supreme Court's observations, Mr. Singhvi, they say that all governments appoint yes men. The point is that the system of appointing election commissioners predates this government. So therefore, would it be fair, for it to be called into question now when it's been something that's been there for a long time?
I agree and disagree both. I agree to the extent that the system is what it is for many years. And that system is what the court is trying to improve. It is trying to suggest that why should the poll panel not have selection process like the CBI, the CBC? So that's the larger institutional question. But I disagree to the extent that the direct diminution of independence of the EC has been much more noticeable, I would say, after the 2014 era. There is no doubt about it in many, many examples. But Nidhi, the real question is, why are you wanting to keep the documents off? The court has said that we don't want to decide the validity of Mr. Goel's appointment. They've said so virtually. We want to see the process, the mechanism by which a person is appointed, how the file moves. That request by the court and that subsequent order by the court was resisted stoutly by the government. Why? Is there something to hide? Why is the hesitation? What is there to suppress in a file which is moved? I think that has raised more questions than what was otherwise an institutional hearing.
Right. Well, I just want to bring Dr. S.Y. Qureshi in as well, former Chief Election Commissioner at this point. Dr. Qureshi, just wanted your thoughts, on this extraordinary hearing that we're seeing in the courts. How are you looking at this? Do you think there is a case to change the way election commissioners are appointed? Is it high time?
Yes, indeed. Actually, it is already quite late. We have been demanding it for the last 20 years. Even as CEC, although I was a beneficiary of the old process of appointment by the government of the day, but we thought we will have a broader acceptance if leader of opposition is also party to our appointment. That's why many successive CECs have been writing to the government to change the procedure and start a collegium system. We are familiar with the collegium system. We have it for CIC, CVC, and even for director of CBI, who is not even a statutory body. He is just a head of a department like director of agriculture. But just because he handles the special cases, Supreme Court in his judgment had decided that he should be appointed through a collegium. If you are already using collegium for various appointments, the most sensitive political the body, the constitutional body, politically sensitive, which is Election Commission, collegium is the natural choice and it should have been done long ago. We have been demanding it. In fact, it is already there late. I hope it is clinched by the Supreme Court now.
Well, we have Mr. Jagdeep Chokar, the founder of the Association for Democratic Reforms, which is one of the petitioners in the Supreme Court matter that is currently being heard by the Constitution Bench. Mr. Chokar, the issue here also is the credibility of the Election Commission itself. There was a time when we would look at the EC unflinchingly as a neutral body, no questions asked, held in very high esteem. And I'm going to ask Dr. Qureshi about this as well. But Mr. Chokar, is that the problem here, that increasingly the Election Commission is being seen as partisan? In some cases it may be unfair, but in other cases there are serious questions to be raised on its conduct, aren't there?
Yes, the Election Commission's behavior over the last few years has become more and more doubtful and is in question. And although the issue of appointment of election commissioners, as Dr. Qureshi has said, has been going on for a long time, it is just that it came up for hearing now. The issue is old, but the developments of the last few years are relatively recent. And the credibility, credibility is something which is very difficult to establish and very easy to destroy. And just 1, 2, 3 actions which are in doubt. And there is also this saying that you should not only be fair, but you should also appear to be fair. There have been several instances in the past few years where the Election Commission has not appeared to be fair, and it has not been coming forth in explaining its actions, and therefore there is doubt. And let me go back even a little more than what Abhishek Singhvi was saying. The issue goes back to when Mr. Session was the Chief Election Commissioner. He was strong to cut his wings. The government made it a 3-member commission so that his sort of toughness could be mellowed. Then he went to the court against those two, and there was a lot of hue and cry even at that time. So Election Commission has earned credibility over time, which it has lost over the last few years, which is very unfortunate. And we hope that this change in the appointment process and giving the election commissioners the same constitutional protection as the chief election commissioner has should go a long way in making the election commission strong and independent and a guardian of our democracy.
We have senior Supreme Court advocate Aman Lekhi joining us as well. Mr. Lekhi, would you agree that the time has come to make it a more transparent process, a fairer process where the executive doesn't have a say alone?
Absolutely. I think the time, in fact, the time had come a fair while ago, and this has been subject matter of various reports too. Was also subject matter of discussion in the Constituent Assembly, but that's a different issue. What you have to keep in mind is the Election Commission is a permanent autonomous body, which is supposed to be insulated from the executive and whose independence has to be safeguarded at all costs. In that context, when you appoint the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners, which according to the Supreme Court are at par, it's important that the discretion which is exercised in the appointment is tempered by norms which are known and structured. The best way to actually bring this about is to have a legislation which sets out the criteria for selection, because that will rein in discretion and help choose those who are appropriate to the position. The endeavor of the court is basically to move in this direction. However, what is important is that this is not dealing with the issue as the requirement warrants. And why I say so, apart from the question of appointment, there are certain related issues that have been repeatedly flagged over time, which are not subject matter of scrutiny of the Supreme Court and cannot be, because that requires an amendment of the Constitution. And it is necessary that we talk about those aspects too, because even if the appointment is now structured, the point is that the Election Commissioner, unlike as distinguished from the Chief Election Commissioner, have insofar as appointment and removal are concerned, not the same protection as the Chief Election Commissioner. So they remain vulnerable, firstly. So we need to address that. And secondly, the Secretariat of the Election Commission, and this has also been subject matter of various reports, has to be also under the control of the Commission. Presently, it is governed by the service rules of the central government employees and not under the control of the Commission. So dealing with the Chief Election Commissioner or Election Commissioner alone will not address the issue comprehensively. This requires a structural reform, and the structural reform is absolutely imperative because the very efficacy of our process is dependent upon due application of the law. And if the general opinion is that in the enforcement there is laxity and the body which is entrusted the responsibility fails, in that event intervention is warranted.
I think you made a very good point as well in terms of, the pool in which from which the appointments are made, and I think that's something that came up in court as well. And before I go to the party leaders who are here from the BJP and the Congress, I just want to go to one last question to Abhishek Singhvi on this, that the court actually asked the centre, why only civil servants? What is the criteria essentially based on which election commissioners are being selected? So how can that be improved, Abhishek Singhvi, that it's not just bureaucrats necessarily who are part of this?
That I think is a larger structural problem, even larger than the case. That is a failure of our structure. We tend to think, just like we think that for all retiral jobs of an adjudicatory nature, only judges are suitable. We tend to think that only bureaucrats, retired or sitting, are suitable for these pools from which you pick up. Now, I think that is something which possibly the Supreme Court may have bitten off more than it can chew, because it needs a structural change in our system. There has been an attempt by several governments, including this one, to have lateral appointments of technocrats, but they are still appointed within the civil service. We have no system of being able to pick from outside of the civil service technocrats who are experts or otherwise qualified, scientists, doctors, etc. Now I've been a very strong proponent of that idea, but it requires a fundamental change in what is known as the iron frame of the bureaucracy. It's not the way the ICS structured us, it's not the way the British structure is, it's not the way we structure ourselves. But I think some start can be made by having either a parallel pool or at least a structured part of 1/5 or 1/3 of the civil service from that category. But that will take a lot more time than the Election Commission issue, which the Constitution bench is looking at.
Abhishek Singhvi, thank you for joining us. I know you had to leave. Let me go to Mr. Prakash Chandra Sharma of the BJP, who's joining us as well. Prakash ji, we saw the centre very strongly defending the existing system. But today you're hearing all the experts, including a former CEC, top lawyers on this panel, they all agree it needs to change. What do you say?
No, Nidhi, one thing is very clear. See, changes are always important and it's always there. See, if you will see the Modi government, it's not only the one sector. Every sector, the Modi government has tried their level best to put the more reforms, to put the more transparency into the system, more, the involvement in the system. As far as the elections are concerned into India, it's not only about the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner of any of the members. Like Mr. Lekhi rightly said, it's all about just setting up all the things. Right now, whatever it has been done now, so it was a process written into the constitution. We are following it up. Every government is following it up. Yes, this is the high time where we can do the reforms, and government can always take the reforms. Whether like we want the more more involvement of the voters to vote 100%, like Mr. Modi in his all the political rallies, he is appealing the people to vote 100%, despite the parties and all. So ultimately, and another thing I just want to mention it, if you will see in past 10 years or past 8 years, more transparency into the election commission has came. It is a more centralized things now, more, more things you can say with the technology use, they are using it. So as far as the appointment is concerned, it is a matter of discussion now.
But Mr. Sharma, why isn't it worrying for you that the election commission is being seen as partisan, and that so many questions are raised today about its conduct, including by those who have served in that institution, who raise a question mark on its conduct?
The questions are always there, but answers are always there. You have to compare it. You have to do the SWOT analysis. What is there in past versus future, centralized versus decentralized. If you see the action of election commission with the use of technology, with the use of message, with the use of online things, many voters are getting easiness of doing it. So it's not like the things are there into the center only. They are doing autonomously. Nobody is getting involved.
I'll give you an example. Why didn't they announce the Gujarat and Himachal elections together when ultimately the results are on the same day?
So, see,
and that has led to serious questions that it was done so that the government could continue to make announcements that would have otherwise violated the model code of conduct in Gujarat. And once those announcements were done, the dates were conveniently announced. We were earlier told that Gujarat has bad weather. Bhai, kaun si baraf padti hai wahan pe?
Totally. Nidhi ji, see, this is the matter. Like if you will see on the macro level, we are always advocating for the one nation, one election. Every party should come on this, and we should do because we have to save the money of the citizen.
That is a separate issue, but this is about the integrity of the EC as a constitutional authority. Adil Boparai of the Congress coming in on this. Adil, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, Nidhi ji, I think I find the comments of the BJP leader starkly different from what the government has been advocating in the Supreme Court. This is not an issue where the government of the day needs to be adversarial. This is an issue which will help us in good stead, which will strengthen democracy. I think it's time in the evolution of our country that we have election commissioners who are independent, who are neutral, and who can withstand executive pressure. It may be the BJP today, there'll be a different government later. And as rightly pointed out by you, it is about declaring elections. It is about the application, the differential and the discriminatory application of the Model Code of Conduct. It is about giving leeway to the government and its leaders and its ministers who make hate speeches. It is about returning officers and electoral officers going after opposition leaders. We've seen this happening. We've seen this happening since post 2014. And over the years, we have noticed that this government has been emasculating institutions. This government wants to really run down institutions which are the lifeblood of our democracy. And if the election commission is not neutral, then democracy really in a pragmatic sense just becomes a shell. Therefore, I urge on behalf of the Congress party that it is time that the government must shed its arrogance. What is falling from the Supreme Court will hold us in good stead. It is a step in the right direction. For example, let me give you another issue. Electoral bonds. What do electoral bonds do? Electoral bonds pave the way for anonymity of donors. It invariably helps the government of the day.
Well, so on that issue, I think you have to lay the blame at the Supreme Court's doorstep as well, which hasn't heard the electoral bonds case for what, 2 years now plus.
Hopefully, it's going to be adjudicated in the near future.
That is a point. But Dr. Qureshi, as a former Chief Election Commissioner, I'm sure it pains you to hear what the impression of the EC is today. I mean, Abhishek Singh, we gave the example of Ashok Lavasa's case. I talked about, the poll schedule. It's not the first time. Increasingly in recent years, more and more questions are being raised about the EC's conduct. And it's not just coming from the opposition.
Yeah, it's a pity. It's a very worrying. We were also appointed by the government of the day. And I can tell you, I was the CEC. My two colleagues were also appointees of the government of the day, same government, same party. But we took action against the law minister of the land, who heads the ministry, which is our administrative ministry. We censured him. We censured 2-3 other ministers, because that is the role which is expected of us. Once appointed, we have to be answerable only to the nation, and we have to rise above all political and party considerations. And CEC after CEC has actually delivered himself very well, acquitted himself very well, which is why we have established a worldwide reputation.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely. The world talks about it, the way India conducts elections.
Oh, quite right. Now, one thing, Mr. Lekhi's words were music to my ears. He was saying exactly the right thing. One thing, why the civil servant, why the IAS? I'll tell you why. Because the IAS have conducted elections for 35 years. If not IAS, who else? Who else will do it? I've been a presiding officer of a booth. I've been returning officer in many elections. I've been observer in many elections, because IAS officers conduct elections around the year for 35 years. So therefore, they are best suited to do these elections, which is the secret of our success.
Absolutely. Well, let's see how this hearing unfolds in the Supreme Court from here. Very, very important. Mr. Sharma, I just wanted to ask you at the end, since you have been speaking about that the government is for reform, do you think it's a good idea to appoint election commissioners, chief justice, leader of the opposition, prime minister? Is that not the fairest way to do it, rather than just the government?
No, it's not like that. See, like whatever we are following a process, and the process is let down there. So any change is there. So lot of consultation and lot of discussions are on air. As far as the reforms are concerned, we have seen rigorously how we are doing it. This government is behind this, more transparent, more technical things, and more openness. And this particular, where the social media is there, all media is there, so many watchdogs are there. Then if you have a doubt, so there is no remedy for the doubt. Only things we need to act. And as far as the futuristic concern is there, because now the future is there, we need to, include the blockchain into it. We need to 100% transformation into it, participation into it, and then the referendum and so many things where we want the public eyes and public views to come on. So for that reason, we have to think on that line. Now we are speaking on very less part of this. We are just making a pick and choose out of it. As far as the proceeding is concerned, now that has on the floor of this Supreme Court, discussions is there, government is submitting their reply, discussions is there, and whatever will be the best for the nation, because we should not forget, due to election commission only, however it was, however it is, and however it will be, we are the world's largest democracy. Despite having
all
so
the
many
more reason to preserve the integrity of the EC.
We should salute them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like we said, the Election Commission has an amazing track record. It's cited all over the world. As Dr. Qureshi also pointed out, the question is that integrity and independence needs to be upheld and preserved at all costs in order for us to continue to call ourselves the world's largest democracy. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you.